It's time for change to move into the real work of the universe. And it's time to understand that we use the matter state to reach the level of understanding of the soul of the man. Now you understand maybe why the Creator has sent his messengers in the name of whatever you have had. Is that they bring the ears, that it can be used when the time of the Messiah comes. They can teach the soul and the message, not to oppose. But by them understanding through those who have become Messiahs, to give from their souls to these to elevate, the job is made easy. The school is there and the students are devotedly there. Then there won't be any fight between what they call the Muslims and the Christians. The lamb and the lion will eat and sleep in the same nest. The Christians and the Muslims will sleep and pray in the mosque, and in the same church, in the name of their souls, not in the name of religion that is used to create so much conflict for the benefit of those who were the hyperactive children. The time has come, the time of change is here. And as I said, my wish is my command. If it's your wish to see peace, path of peace is laid very clearly. It's the soul of the collective awareness, by giving, will create that position of change. No other thing. There is no pen in the soul of the man. And I'm sure once you go into the universal community, you will never see anything written but the balance of the fields of the soul of the existence. Try to be humble enough not to become arrogant in the power that you have understood and you possess. Otherwise, you'll fall in the same path of the church and the mosque. This is what we promised, and this is what we have delivered. We have to understand the operation of the soul, and we have to understand the soul of the man is a star in the cosmos of the universe. If we compare the soul of the man and many of us, 7 billion in one collection, Earth is like a galaxy with so many stars. When we look in the depth of the universe, we see galaxies with hundreds of millions of stars in it. So is the planet Earth. It carries 7 billion beautiful stars, which are the soul of the man. Carries with it soul of so many trillions of animals, plants, and everything else. So if you look, when someone who does not see the physicality of the earth and its content, what do they see? They see a galaxy with so many beautiful lights shining, each one according to their strength, each one according to their position. An infant has a beautiful soul, so has the old man. To those who do not see the physical dimension of this planet, but they see the strength of the field, we are clusters of stars. The human race, every single soul, no one from a distance sees, that's the soul of a fisherman, that's the soul of the cosmologist, that's the soul of the president. They all shine irrespective of the physicality. This is the magic. This is what the new science has to bring to man. When we look through our soul, we see nothing but we star in the other souls. And this is the break. This is the understanding. This is what all these teachings are about. Coming to mature to the next level, to understand in the deep space, the universe is the oyster for those souls who serve. Then man is ready to go into space. Then man is ready to become part of the universal community which has been promised. I never promised you heaven. I always promised you the elevation of the man to join the family. And now you have the key. It's you who has to open the door to understand, if I can raise the soul of these people or millions of other souls, that the physical life on this planet changes, then I'm worthy to be part of the universal community. To be there to serve, to expand. To be there to be part, that in the cycle of life of universe, I become, in being part, I become part of the totality. When man reaches that point, a new dimension in the strength of the soul of the man will appear, which is beyond imagination of understanding of the physical life. It's the gate to the opening of the new life, in a new dimension, which is beyond imagination of what you might call a new beginning, a new cycle, which that cycle carries with itself the origin of the creation of life in the universe and the universe. It's the elevation of the soul to serve, become the key, not a throne of the physical life. The time is right. The time has come for the man to go through this process.
Welcome everyone to the 60th One Nation, One Planet, One Race for World Peace. It's Tuesday, December 4th, 2018. And I welcome everyone to this presentation from the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute. It's public education in English. And my name's Rick Crammond. I'll be your host today. And as usual, we're also joined with Caroline Keshe of the Keshe Foundation. And I believe she's hovering there in the background, ready to join in. And we have a number of topics that we'll be covering today. And I think we'll get into it right away here. Caroline, are you there?
Yes, Rick. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome, everybody. We're going to have a very busy afternoon, or morning, or evening. Rick has lined out a lot of topics for you, and let's work together to find the solutions and the reverse or the understanding of what is about to come on our table. Go ahead, Rick.
Okay, well, there's a number of topics that got mentioned before the show here, and there's things happening in the world that we can comment on and get people's opinions about, and find the idea is to let's say define the problem, and then we have the solution. So in other words, we can define the problem in terms of the solution. The Keshe Foundation has so many solutions for the problems that mankind is facing now, that I think it's an ideal opportunity at this point in the history of mankind, humankind, let's say, that we have this grand opportunity actually to facilitate the movement into a whole new age, bringing in the plasma technology. And more so, I see, and others as well, of course, but I see the signs in our environment, in our cultures and around the world. And, you know, for example, in Canada, where I live, there's many people that are living in fear of losing their jobs now. And this is, it's a valid fear, because many of the jobs that we have now as a so-called developed country in Canada will be obsolete in a few years. For example, in Canada, the most prevalent job, the one that hires the most people, is truck driver. And yet we have plans for automated trucks in the next few years. Virtually all the trucks will become automated and electric and automated, and they'll be driving themselves around, and we won't need truck drivers as a profession. And that main job for all those people, they're going to lose that. And that includes the oil sands, which is one of the main sources of employment in this country, where they get oil from the, it's called tar sands or oil sands. And that'll become automated as well in the next few years. Over the next 5 years, they'll be practically fully automated. All the vehicles will be driving themselves around. They won't need all those drivers. So this it's a big issue. And we also have closures of the, for example, the General Motors plant last week in Oshawa, Ontario in Canada is shut down. Not shut down yet, but they decided to shut down next year prematurely and pull out of Oshawa. And this is the main city where General Motors got its beginning 100 years ago. And it was the largest production city for this huge assembly plant in the 1950s and 60s and 70s. I was actually there in the early 1970s as a student engineer, and this assembly plant was so large that the parking lot, they used to do drag races in the parking lot with the cars that were just freshly produced from the assembly plant, because the parking lot was so huge that you could actually do drag races in it, and it was kind of funny. But that was the old days, and now all that's going to be gone. And the city is in a state of shock from all that. There's been a gradual decline over the years, but this is a sudden shock. And the reason General Motors is giving for pulling out is, well, they're going to reinvest their money. What are they going to reinvest in? Because the assembly plant in Oshawa is the best quality car assembly plant in all of GM. Why would they get rid of it? Well, it turns out they don't want to make cars anymore. Not the cars that have been made. They're moving to self-driving electric cars. And this is what GM is investing in. They're taking their $6 billion and going and investing it elsewhere. So, and this is the way things are going. And right now we have this huge conference going on internationally with the climate change crisis and so on. And this is a 2-week conference, I understand, over this last weekend and next weekend and so on. And again, they're moving away from oil to electric and self-driving, and a whole different culture is now being emphasized in the media and in the plans for government and so on. And people just don't know what to do. We don't know what to do with all the oil in Canada. It's a major crisis right now, and one of the problems is we have too much oil, and they can't sell it because it's no longer valuable on the market. So they're getting $10 a barrel for the oil, and they're losing money on every barrel, $50 million a day. It's not sustainable, and it's basically the end of the oil industry, and it's the time for a new beginning. So this is what's happening in Canada. Maybe Ursula, she was talking about the situation in France recently, which is similar, I see, in many ways, and even more extreme, of course, because they're having riots there and so on. Could you talk a little bit about that, Ursula, what you brought up before we started here, and we can sort of just set the scene a little bit on what's going on in the world, and then we can introduce solutions on all of this dilemma, all of these fears that people have. Can you speak to that? Are you there, Ursula? Maybe you need to, are people able to open their microphones? Okay, well, maybe she's not available right now. Okay, so maybe someone else can make a comment about that. Is there anyone that's from France that might be experiencing some of the action there and can explain what's going on?
Rick, I find it's all a question of communicating fear. You're going to lose your job, you won't have food, you won't have money, you won't have this. And what are we doing? We're getting rid of food, we're getting rid of energy, we're getting rid of transport, and the need for medicine. We've got to concentrate on forgetting about fear and just teaching the people that they can fend for themselves.
Well, that's right. Yes, that's basically it. But how is what are the solutions that we do have?
Well, that's
like you
what
mentioned,
we're learning, isn't it?
Sorry, pardon me?
That is exactly what we're learning. We just got to teach it now.
Yeah. And many people are, you mentioned food, for example, and that'll be definitely a big priority. And if people are used to, a rich diet in the developed countries where you have a pretty heavy calorie load, and people are often doing heavy work too in certain industries and so on. They might need a lot of calories working in cold weather and that kind of thing. But perhaps, pardon me?
Yeah, barge in. You're talking about heavy in calories and whatever, the food we're ingesting may have a lot of carbon but has no energy. All the foods that are being fabricated because they're not naturally made, it's all Monsanto and what have you. It's all carbon. That's the way they calculate the calories, by burning the food and measuring the carbon footage or stepway or whatever you want to call it. But the real thing is the energy the food has to give us, the fields, not the carbon stamp.
Yes, right, indeed. So
Ursula's got her hand lifted up right now. So.
Oh, okay.
Yes, thank you.
Go ahead, Ursula.
Thank you, John. We are all two Argentines, so we can understand us each other. And I wanted to say the solution is only to show it. You can teach what you want, but you know, as children, they never do what we tell them to do. They do exactly what we do, what we have done, and they repeat it. So this is the same case. I was just arrived here in Provence, in France, south of France, in a house, beautiful house, but now I will move again to the other house, bigger one, not so nice as this, but with 3,900 square meters to cultivate in permaculture plasma. And so I will show it. So it's easier.
I don't know if I can eat.
Hello, Caroline. Caroline, your microphone's open. Okay.
So
we're good. We'll keep going there, Ursula.
What is she eating?
Thinking about eating.
Yes, we talk about eating, but I will show how to cultivate these vegetables with plasma energy. I have a friend of mine, he's expert cultivator, and he knows nothing about plasma, and for me it's a challenge. I show him how it works. He is not a young one, but maybe he will understand very quickly because he got many problems, health problems, and he has no more problems. So he understood that plasma is working. And now I will have a teacher also with permaculture, and we will want to make a group and an association, and people will see. It's easy to see what happens. When you talk to them about disease and all this, they go all to the doctor because the naturopath, they don't understand, they don't believe. Okay, now we will do a garden, beautiful garden, and then they will see. So they can understand because here there are many agricultors, and there is also a nice nuclear station. It's not an easy place. It's with good wine also. It's in the Rhône, Côte de Rhône. And well, we will try it with them also and give them, it's not difficult to put a bottle into the earth and then see what happens, and they will see, and so they will understand. You can tell him what you want. You can tell all, make conferences. They do not believe. I did it all right for 2 or 3 years, but now they will see. And now I have learned to show them how it works. I'm very happy. And even if in France now there are mayhem, terrible mayhem, you see it in the televisions, in the information. Okay, they are all in fear. They are all crying about what will happen, not more food and so many taxes paying and terrible. But when you teach them how to eat less and better, because supermarkets, there are so many here, the big one, you know, Carrefour, the biggest. But this junk food is not nourishing them. And the contrary, they're getting sad with this, with all this commercial, and it's, they will understand. Now they will understand because they will see what happens, and with other devices also, and then they will start to learn, because when they are afraid and there are solutions, there are not other way to learn, to open your eyes, teach their children. All the children I see here almost are hyperactive, but when you look at the parents, they are the same, and even the grandparents. So there are many hunters here, you know, aggressive, and but I'm sure something will happen very soon. So I'm very happy about this possibility. You know, your wish is your command. I wished a land to make permaculture and go forward with showing what happens. This is the solution for me in this moment. So show others what you are able to do. I see Gatwa is there. He's just showing what he's doing, and with so many students coming, 300, 400, and more, and this will expand. And this is what we should do also, there where we are, with what we have. It's the easiest way. There's not others. You can tell them what you want. With your show, when you show, it's much more easier. This is my solution.
Very good idea. I noticed also in India right now, the farmers are rebelling, and there's tens of thousands of them that have gotten together in the capital and have they've gotten together and as a movement, and they've just filled the roads walking together, and to have their voices heard. And they need more support. Their wages have not gone up with the times, and most of them are losing money on their farms, and they have a high rate of suicide because the people have been buying the seed and fertilizer and pesticides and herbicides and all the other stuff that goes along with a so-called modern farm. And that gets the farmers into debt. And then they can't keep up with that debt thing, because if you have one bad season where the weather isn't good or whatever, then you get behind in your debt, and you can't get the seed for the next season, and so on and so forth. And of course, it's tied into the large corporations that run all that. And the farmers are very unhappy right now in India. So again, this ties into a similar sentiment where the grassroots people, the people that are usually in the more poor section of the culture and society, are rebelling. They're just not taking it anymore, and they've had enough, and they wish for a better result. And the politicians have a lot of pressure on them all over the world to take care of their people, and they're not sure what to do, because it's this big question mark of the future. And what if we don't have, what if we don't have our farmers? What if we don't have the food? What if we don't have the oil resources and the oil income that supports a lot of the countries and so on? So they're looking for solutions, and I think it's great that the Keshe Foundation has been working on the very solutions that are now being looked for. The governments are actually actively looking for new energy sources, and actively looking for new ways to do farming, and new ways to take care of the environment and decontaminate things and so on. And if we look at one of the latest things from the Keshe Foundation is with the swine flu epidemic in China in particular. And that was in the last Knowledge Seekers workshop where it was discussed. And there's work ongoing on that to show that the Keshe Foundation products, the plasma water in particular, can be used in this instance, as well as many other similar circumstances with diseases and viruses and this kind of thing. And the solution has been offered, and we'll see how that goes over the next days and weeks here as that unfolds, as the teams in China work with that information, and we'll see whether it gets accepted by the government and whether they go forward with a large study to see how effective it is and so on. So we're looking at really big changes where we actually have a major crisis with the pig or swine flu or swine fever, sometimes it's called. And here it is, the Keshe Foundation has a solution. And if it fits hand in glove the way it looks, then this will bring a lot of attention to the science and technology behind the Keshe Foundation. And how is this done? How is it that this seemingly simple substance can be so effective? And how can that be springboarded or how can we leapfrog that into other aspects and other industries and make use of that and have it really work for other situations. And if this starts to catch on, then people will be more and more interested in other solutions that the Keshe Foundation has, because the Keshe Foundation, through Mr. Keshe and the work of the other knowledge seekers, has a broad range of solutions. We have a broad bandwidth, you could say, of active, practical solutions for humans, for the dilemmas that are rapidly unfolding on the planet now. We're going to be seeing all kinds of efforts with new kinds of alternate energy and this kind of thing coming up. And the governments are going to be just scrambling, trying to figure this out, because they don't have much of a clue. They don't have the correct guidance to tell them where to go and to the next step. And they know that there's new technology coming, and it's really big, and it's more than electric cars. It's beyond that, but they don't know what it is. They just know that there's some really big changes happening, and it involves phasing out of the burning of fuels. And this is the big thing. This is the thing Mr. Keshe talked about 10 years ago, and I think it was 2008, the first videos. Is time for man to stop the burning of fuels, and move to the new technology, which doesn't require that burning. So now is the time to be working toward that harder than ever for all of the areas, the production of power, the production of new materials, which the whole realm of nanomaterials is just skyrocketing now in science. It's a very active area. They're discovering new things literally every day in the area of nanotechnology. And the Keshe Foundation has amazing things to offer there. We just have to package it, package it in a way that the scientists can digest it, let's say. Otherwise, they get indigestion with some of our concepts and ideas. But if they, like Ursula says, if they actually work with it themselves and they actually see the results and they get happy lab rats that they have a hard time getting rid of because they live so long, and they start to get attached to them because they're so tough and resilient because of using the GANS materials and so on. That affects people doing that kind of research, and they start to go, whoa, what is going on here? And I think that that kind of thing is going to, the snowball effect is about to take place, the way I see it, in many different aspects of the work of the Keshe Foundation. So we're very fortunate now to be in this point in time where there's so much potential in so many areas, and this is the big thing about it. So,
Rick?
Yeah, go ahead, John.
I've got a new challenge for Mr. Keshe and ourselves, because we are seeing so many floods and instantaneous rainfalls that are flooding everything. How can we manipulate or take into consideration using the plasma energy to stop these floods or deviate these rains?
Oh, you'd rather put it off on your neighbor instead of yourself? Is that what you're saying?
No. We have
well,
to
the thing, Mr. Keshe has talked about this before, and the problem of trying to control weather and this kind of thing, where yes, you might control it in one area, but that means that something else is going to happen in another area, and the desert is going to get rain that it didn't expect, which has just happened recently in the Middle East. The desert got flooded and it's destroyed the life of the desert, basically, that was based on the dry environment for the last 1,000 years or whatever. And
you have misinterpreted my saying. 60 years ago, Wilhelm Reich used to, with organic guns, used to make rain fall on deserts. We should.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. If it's been a desert for 1,000 years, John, this is what just happened in the Middle East. The weather just suddenly changed, and the rain came in and killed all the life in the desert because it wasn't used to that.
Exactly, but
so why would you want to change the weather when you don't know the results of it? Is the thing. You're protecting the weather.
Change. I said control. What did Tom Tallis do? What did Tom Tallis do? He
didn't control. He made a dome of protection. That's different than controlling.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, it's not controlling. It's man's thing. Thinks he can control the weather. He controls one part of it. But even with Tom Tallis, his other cabin down in a different area got destroyed, which wasn't a big deal because it needed to be rebuilt or something anyways. But,
no, the whole island was going to be destroyed. He saved his home and garden, but that doesn't mean he killed the rest of the island.
No, but he was, that's a dome of, making an oasis is different than changing the weather. That's my...
Well, build an oasis to avoid floods, then. Call it whatever you need. With plasmatic water, I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, you can put out, with a small mist of plasmatic water, you can put out the fires that have been falling on California, and nobody has done this yet.
A mist of plasmatic water.
This was done over 20 years ago in Kuwait.
Plasma water was sprayed? What do you
Yes,
mean?
exactly. Plasmatic water was sprayed on the oil fields that were burning, and in less than 6 months, there were 280 wells were their fires were extinguished.
What plasmatic water? What do you mean? GANS water? You're
They
talking.
used another name. It was water. It was called superionized water, but it was plasmatic water. It's the same stuff.
Same stuff as what?
Plasmatic
Plasma
water and superionized water.
I don't know what superionized water is, but I don't think it's the same
Look,
as GANS.
I can tell you it is because I've worked with it 20 years ago.
Okay.
Just look it up on internet and you'll find it.
Yeah, I don't have time for that right now, but maybe we can deal with it
No, I'm
later.
not saying do it right now. I've done it for 20 years and, well, I've worked with it. I've known its properties. I've used them.
So it's made the same as GANS water. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know. No, I don't know how it's made because that was a secret. It was sold to us.
So how do you know it's the same water?
Because it's got the same, exactly the same properties.
How you establish that?
I've used both of them. I'm making plasmatic water, and 20 years ago, I've used superionized water.
Okay, well, whatever. It's I'm not sure where we're going with that. So
No, well, I just the point I started with is how could we use plasma energy to control floods? We've learned how to control viruses. We have learned how to control epidemics, different pesticides, if we want to call what Monsanto does, modification of the genes, controlled cancer, controlled HIVs, controlled many things. There's so much more we can do with this.
yeah. So what would be some of the other solutions to problems in the world? Some of the things we mentioned.
As Mr. Keshe says, we've got to experiment.
What about, well, we have been experimenting for 6, 7, 8 years here now. So we have a lot of things to, in fact, if you look at the products in the Keshe Foundation.
I know, because I'm working with them.
A lot of products. I'd like to get back to Ursula for a minute, and maybe she could explain a little more. What is it that people are upset about in France in particular? I understand is to do with the fuel costs. Is that one of the big issues, or is that just a side issue?
Yes, this is the main issue. Is the part of the visible iceberg, but there are much more. For those who are aware, they know what happens with the secret societies and all this kidnapping of children and killing them in terrible reasons, as you know, and robbing, and almost now in Christmas time. And then there's also all the old people who have not more money, and so many young people who have not more work and getting sick and desperate and getting crazy, and so much hyperactive children, what the system want to have so they can take medicine and they get all crazy in this moment because they have fear, they have no more money, no more to eat. So it's really a difficult reason. And then we know what happens behind this. All this system from the agenda, what is crush them down. And now they want to put also the chip into the hand, to control, have more control. And they are very aggressive also at Paris. They're coming into the bars and taking away all those who have the yellow jacket and put them all crazy and in fear. But I think this will not stop. And until Macron do not go away, they will continue because they're all now crazy with so much taxes. They cannot work. Nobody can live anymore here. So,
one of the dilemmas, again, that gets into the oil thing, because the way I understand it is that you put a tax on diesel, because diesel's to be phased out in Europe now. Diesel was in last decade because they thought it was the answer. It was less CO2 emissions and so on. Then they found out that diesel was killing way too many people. And now they've decided to phase diesel out all over the world. And so the tax helps that occur, which is a good thing, but at the same time, people see it as a bad thing because of the additional money they have to pay for their fuel, of course, and they're upset because they're losing jobs and everything else that's associated with those industries as well. So that invokes a lot of fear because they feel like the whole rug's being pulled out of their life. They no longer can rely on those kind of jobs in order to have a healthy income and keep paying those bills and so on.
yes.
So
and the pensions are going lower, and the salaries also. There are not more money. Taxes going very high, very, very high. And also of those who have entrepreneurs, I closed mine last year because as naturopath was not very easy to pay my taxes because the people don't believe as much, and they prefer to go to big supermarket and eat junk food because it's what they have every time done, and so they're not aware of what happens. And you know that France is one of the most deep infected lands with all this agenda and all these people coming here and taking this land down, as it was so many times. I was working on European programs at this time in biodiversity. I have been assistant director, and I saw what happens inside. Europe is a good idea, but very bad intentions. So I didn't know. I was working for the Agenda 2021. I didn't know what happens with this. I was even happy when Europe has been going on, because I find it a good idea. But it was not, because the intention was very bad. So we know that French people are sleeping people. They don't understand what happens. And now that they understood, more of them, why they are very violent. It's going very worst. So I know that this will happen, and Mr. Keshe tell it to us also in the whole world, not only in France. But okay, it's going on, and now we wish that people will awake to other kind of life and plasma science. And I hope when people are desperate and have no more money to buy, Many people are quitting their houses because they cannot afford anymore the lawyers, so the rent. So okay, it's time. It's time to change. It's time to act for all of us and show them how we can do it otherwise, and have a massive teaching, because it's easier when the people need it to do. So it's our time to act, and I'm very happy to participate in this.
Well, that's good. Thank you. I think that's the main purpose of the Keshe Foundation is to present this teaching to the people who need it. And if people are now needing it more than ever, and increasingly so every day, then it becomes more important for the knowledge seekers and the teachers and the students around the Keshe Foundation to get that knowledge out to people, and start letting them know what's going on, and teaching and showing, and the whole thing. So definitely we have a huge opportunity and a huge job at the same time, because I mean, it's literally all over the world, seems to be happening simultaneously almost. It's major movements of Aboriginal groups, for example, are binding together and getting action happening, because they're forming groups that are dedicated to certain ideals and certain going in a certain direction. And it's a different culture we live in now, with Facebook and all the different media, social medias, and different ways of communicating, and email and all that kind of thing, where people are now connected all over the world. And the only way that we're going to be able to make these big changes is when everyone is connected and feels that connection with others, and knows that it's not just their village that's changing, it's the entire world that's changing. And it's time for a whole new outlook, that a fresh change and a new way of being. We see openings of possibility of more peace in the future. Of course, there's local skirmishes and things that are happening still, with wars and various things. But we've also seen this last week that the U.S. Congress got together and decided that they want to stop supporting the war in Yemen. And this is a big news, because the U.S. has been supporting the war in Yemen, and it's caused a lot of grief in that part of the world. They say it's the worst situation as far as the people of that area, is the worst situation in the planet right now, with hundreds of thousands of children and other people, mostly children involved, that are have been displaced or killed. And it's a very serious situation. And now, all of a sudden, mostly due to various things that have happened in Saudi Arabia and so on, there's changes happening, and it's a change toward peace. It's no longer okay to be, no longer as okay, let's say, to be killing other humans and whatnot, as we've done for so many centuries. It's starting to look a little actually brutal, and which it is. It's a very brutal thing, killing humans, and yet our developed countries do it the best. What's with that? What was that?
we made a wish to stop the war in Yemen. It's on the document there.
I think
wonder
you
how
had
long
a
ago
wish.
that was.
Maybe I should pull up the document here.
I think we're starting to see our wishes come true that we put on this document some months ago.
Mm-hmm. Let me just share that. See, this is the ending here, but we had a recent one from Pete with the Ukraine and Russia conflict to be resolved to elevate all Ukrainians, but that was not the one that you're referring to, Flint. Let me see if I can find it here.
Just do a search for Yemen.
Thank you, Flint. That was a good idea. There's the picture. And
You passed it there. It's
yeah,
right there.
I
We
just
wish for
trying
Yemen
to
to
trying
restore.
to see if there's something else. Yeah. And it's we wish for Yemen to restore peace, tranquility, and abundance, and that humanitarian aid is delivered. And this is exactly the issue that's happening right now. Is the main port has been repeatedly bombed and repeatedly not allowing the aid to come through, and now that's that's about to change. That's so we have some pictures here, and we go on to just read this part. We feel the peace, tranquility, and abundance in Yemen. May this day be the day of peace. We elevate the people of Yemen as they end their differences and reposition themselves in a peaceful manner. We wish the truth concerning the situation in Yemen to be revealed. We give from our souls to those who stand up and walk for peace. We wish the people of Yemen to regain their wisdom. So that was basically it. And I know, Flint, you had a thing about the weapons in the U.S. as well. I don't know if it was right around.
Well, recalling the soldiers or calling them. I don't know what date that Yemen was.
I've yet to put the date on these. Here we are. From the United States of America and its territories, represented by Flint. My wish is that military personnel and associated... You want to read this, Flint? Maybe you should read it. It's your thing. Okay. Go ahead.
Yes. My wish is that military personnel and associated weaponry and equipment located anywhere in the world from all of the branches of the U.S. military are recalled back to the United States and decommissioned or converted for peaceful applications only. The military budget is applied in transparent manner to educate and serve all beings inhabiting the United States, America, and its territories to serve as peaceful teachers, thusly elevating the education and well-being of all humanity. Yeah. And my wish is my command.
Thank you, Flint. I am present for that.
I am present.
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 I'm present.
Now,
And so with us pulling out, or the United States pulling out of Yemen, that's a good sign.
yeah, and I just noticed here that we had put in after your comment, the comment from President Trump from June 12, 2018, where he said, "No more war games. They are too expensive. We will be stopping the war games, which will save us a tremendous amount of money." I think it's very provocative. I laugh because, I mean, just about everything Trump does seems to be provocative. But he's talking about stopping the war games, which will save us a tremendous amount of money. Well, think about when he finally figures out that if they would stop the military budget, how much money they would save. But, you know, of course, he doesn't think of it that way. He thinks that they're making money with the military budget because that's where all the jobs are. So this is where the perspective needs to be elevated, let's say. If Trump being such a businessman, he's always got a dollar sign behind the things these decisions he seems to make. Well, perhaps if he can see that it's cheaper and more business happening in a peaceful environment, perhaps it'll go beyond stopping the war games and just plain stopping the war, because it no longer serves its purpose that it did in the old days. Now, the war doesn't work because it's starting to be like the US versus China, for example, with the trade wars they just come up with. And they're hassling back and forth about tariffs here and tariffs there. And all of a sudden they've tariffed each other to death, and they're both losing out, both losing their business because they need each other. China needs the US needs China. They're both helping each other build their businesses if they so choose to do so. And they both realize ultimately that a warlike stance is just not going to work. It just knocks out your business, and you can't get into the business of war because it's over too soon when it comes to world wars now. It'll be over in a matter of a day or two. It's with nuclear bombs. So it's not something they want to play with. It's end of their ability to build their nation, which is what they really want to do, to take care of their people and so on. So it's in a way, it's about the jobs. The wars seem to be about the jobs. It's money, it's jobs. It keeps people occupied doing something, making weapons. But at the same time, we've seen the bankruptcy of some of the major weapons manufacturers in the last while. After President Trump got elected, suddenly they stopped selling as many guns. Strangely enough, you'd think that there would be more guns sold with his attitude. It's got a very lax attitude and a tight relationship with the arms people and so on. But it turns out that people felt so secure with Trump that he wouldn't take away their weapons that they stopped buying guns. Because in the US, if you say that we're going to start taking not letting people buy guns, then all of a sudden people go out and just buy a huge amount of guns. Every time there's a mass killing, people go out and buy guns because they think that their guns are going to be taken away. But with Trump in office, that they're relieved that that's not going to happen, so they don't buy guns anymore. in Remington, the manufacturers of the AR-15 assault rifle, one of the most common assault rifles, went out of business this year. And not only that, but the banks will no longer finance those kinds of companies. So this is big news. It's a big change that's occurred just in the last half a year or something like that. Sorry, someone had a mic open, I think there, that wanted to speak perhaps. Or someone would like to speak, please raise your hand or stick your nose or elbow in here so I don't talk so much. So solutions. How can part of the solution that we've worked with through these wishes list here, and is exemplified through the one that Flint was reading, is we wish to elevate those that are involved in these positions. And we can see that perhaps that's the way forward. And maybe that's the way to help in many situations, is to elevate those that are involved and allow things to work through as they will, when there's a push from that essence, soul-based, very deep level. And then everything else just kind of falls in place after that, because the wish is out there, that initial prime sort of source-based wish goes out, and it helps to elevate the situation or others, depending on how it's directed and how it's worked with. And it's possible to see results, and maybe it's not the best way to go about it by looking for results, but you just let it go and unconditionally put out that wish for elevating others without necessarily getting results back directly. Maybe the results won't come through for some time, but generally you'll see something happen, and this is part of what we saw after, I think it was right after Flint's wish, that we saw that President Trump had the quote, "No more war games, they're too expensive," and so on.
Hi, Rick.
Hi, Jalal, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. I think what Ursula said is very profound, that we show more than when we speak. It is the life thing, and life thing need to show. So
live thing or life thing? Live, living thing, like a
living
live
thing. Yes, living thing.
Yeah.
So when you show what you progress here in plasma technology, you'll bring more people to understand there is a different thing. There is something new. What they learn is totally in the opposite way, and there is a good way to deal with all situation of our needs.
And what would some of those? What are some of the things that you see, Jalal? That
okay, the easiest one to start with is the feeding systems, and symbolization the energy fields of the food. And I think all the knowledge seekers, they know how to do it, and it's better to every day to someone of us start something and put it out in the media, whatever it is, and let's say energy of protein, energy of fish, energy of all of kinds of food, and it's very easy for us to do it, and it's very easy to us to show it also. And the people, they will start asking how that work, and then when they ask, they will receive. And because they are all of the people, they have needs. One of the most important thing is the feeding system. And if you go to that way, I think they will open up their eyes. And the other system is the bringing back the cells to what do you call it? Processing the human body. And this one also, it's very easy to deal with. Even the environment, the agriculture, every one of us, I think, of the knowledge seeker, he have touched in a way with the plants. Just make a photo for your plants and put the photo in the media. The people will start asking, what is that? And how you apply it and how you create it. If I start teaching 1 hour in the, let's say in the Facebook, no one will understand. But if I put one picture about growing a plant, normal one, and what we do with the plasma technology, there is a huge difference. And then they will start asking. And then when you put one picture of feeding energy and all of sort of things, or vitamins or tablets, and just 5 words, it's enough. They will start asking, what is that? How it's working? Did you try it? You see, this is the normality of the human being. They like Mr. Cash all said, monkey see, monkey do. But they want to see. That is the problem of humanity. They do not want to understand. They do not want to think. They want to see, because the media for this 56 years, you see, they mind control everything.
Just saying, seeing is believing.
Yes. Not thinking. You see, that is the difference. So I think we are as a knowledge seekers, as a Cash Foundation, we are really in the right path, but we need more effort to put this knowledge out. And I think every knowledge seeker in whole world, they have a knowledge. Just put your knowledge out. What you done, practically what you done. If you done MAGRAPH, if you done plasma energy food, if you done healthy system to bring back the balance to the body, if you do to the plants, if you do to the environment, just put it out and see how it goes viral. Because the people need it now. They need such a thing because they are living in a media. You see, in pictures. So they need pictures. They do not need now talk.
Mm-hmm.
As Ursula said, that is quite really right. Thank you, Rick.
Points. Thank you very much. Now, we had what happened here with, we had a hand up. Hands are going up. Estella, you had your hand up. Would you like to go ahead? Let's see if I can. People bounce around so much here, it's hard to get them up there.
Hello.
I need to go out. I was outside and then I came outside again.
Okay.
So what I see, how the system, the constraint where we live in the system and this planet has all the humans trapped, you know, and by fear. Oh, how am I going to feed my kid? How am I going to do this? Or like you said, the petroleum is not. But not everybody can afford, you know, the new technologies. Everything is controlled through the money. The exchange. What's the money? The exchange, the value of each individual, the fields of each individual, how we interact and we position ourselves in this system. And it happened to me. And almost like the 99. Those are, you know, principles that we need to elevate, you know, so the problem is to work so.
So are you breaking up there, Estella? Can you do a better position where you have a better signal, maybe?
Can you hear me now?
About every other word.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Can you hear?
Yep.
The issue is that we need to change at the soul level, the language, and open the abundance of creation. And when Jalal was saying is basically open the doors so people can pick up the fields because there are alternative solutions, new ways of doing things, and putting that wish, I think, is very powerful because we're talking to the souls and of everybody to, you know, like saying there is an alternative. Don't be afraid. Look at the, you know, and it happened. People start to see new ways of doing things, and trust that what we communicating soul's gonna start to connect back to the group, you know. And the value is important, the flow of the fields. And suddenly maybe money disappear because we're doing things in a different way. And that's how I see this. The money, the way how commerce is done, the way how governments control through the money, the market, the resources, the natural things from the planet, it doesn't even belong to the countries. It belongs to the whole humanity, to the animals, to the trees, to the souls. We all, this is home. So that system of this is mine and this is yours, I think is, you know, has to be managed in a completely different way from the fields, which is abundance, infinite opportunities. So that's what I want to share.
Yeah, good point. Okay, anybody else like to weigh in here? Mark, would you like to, let me get you promoted here. Anybody else that's an attendee, put your hand up if you want to speak.
Okay, Rick, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, let me just close this door here. I'm just going to read something out of the 231st workshop. That's a little elevating, quite elevating. And it's at hour 2 minute 30, say. And here's Mr. Keshe. I was explaining this to the director of the Keshe Foundation this morning, that the governments have decided in one shape or another to allow the Keshe Foundation to emerge outside in the public domain in the coming time. Time and scale of it, I don't know how they have decided, will be decided by. But from what we see in the background, the emergence of the foundation work, through most of the work you are doing, has become forced on many governments. We have to be correct in what we do, and what we say and what we show. So as Mr. Keshe is a patient man, so should we be patient. Continue learning, continue teaching, continue elevating. So it's in the works. It's just a matter of time and when, but they have decided in one shape or another to allow the foundation to emerge in the public domain. I don't know if that's going to take an event or something else, or Mr. Keshe bringing somebody out of a coma in front of the whole world, but it's going to be allowed to emerge. So just be patient, as Mr. Keshe is.
It could even happen through a bunch of pigs. Who knows? The world, the universe works in strange ways. So it appears to be the case that perhaps the what would you call it, the change point, or the transition for the Keshe Foundation to be accepted with mainstream might be through the swine fever epidemic. What a strange and strange, juxtaposition, they call it, or a strange thing. The fact that it may be through, pigs, through swine, that this teaching gets promoted and developed and then reminded to people. But
sure is a powerful foot in the door.
Yeah. But there's so many areas that that the Keshe Foundation is having breakthroughs in at the same time that it's hard to say. We could have an energy breakthrough that could change the world. We could have a new materials breakthrough that could have huge changes. If we show some lift and levitation, you can bet that that'll be a huge thing, because that's what many corporations are looking for now. All of the car companies now have flying car designs that they're bringing up, and all of these drones that you see being used all over the world now are now becoming car-sized, and they want this to be able to have fast, efficient, and safe transportation in cities and so on. But it remains to be seen. That's still not, I don't see that the rotating propellers are going to be a crowd favorite anytime soon. But if we can come up with silent, levitating vehicles that could alleviate the traffic congestion and all the problems of wasting of human life while we sit around in these vehicles waiting for other vehicles and getting gassed by the vehicle in front of you and so on. Waiting in line to get gassed, you might say, is ridiculous. It's a pastime that's way past its time. It's time to stop sucking the exhaust of the cars in front of us. It's ridiculous. And why would we want to deliberately kill 30,000 humans every day that way? I don't know. It's we have options now. We don't have to do that. So this is the big thing. It's time to develop those options and get them out into the public so that they can be assessed and evaluated and developed and worked with, so we can get on with creating a beautiful new future that can leave behind some of our old ways. Of course, not everyone's going to leave their old ways behind right away, and that's understandable. And there'll be lots of people that will hang on to their old ways till they have to bite and fight and scratch in order to keep hanging on to it. And I see that happening in Canada, that people really want to keep their jobs in certain kinds of jobs and so on. They can't think of getting away from that somehow, and they can only think of, well, this is the jobs we've had for the last 80 years, and my father did it, and his father did it, and his father's father did it, and that's what we've all done here. We've all been car assemblers, or we've all been working in the oil industry, or we've all been in certain trades that might be fading out now because of the technology changes. It's a different world we're moving into. One of the big changes that's going on right now is the introduction of this, what they call the $15 an hour minimum wage. And the thing about it is, whether it's in the US or Canada, or I'm assuming maybe in Europe as well, it's around that $15 or 15 euros, doesn't matter if it's Canadian or American. That $15 an hour it's a kind of a magic word. It's a phrase that corporations have been looking for years. And that $15 an hour, what that means is that's the break-even point for technology, for robots to take over. $15 an hour. Once the wages get over $15 an hour for the minimum wage, corporations look at, whoa, wait a minute. It costs us $14 an hour to automate. Well, that's a no-brainer. Automate everything. So this is the thing. So instead of baristas at a coffee shop, you'll have a robot barista with cracking lots of jokes and able to interact with people emotionally and be able to do all the stuff that baristas do and more and faster and everything else. And this is what's being brought in the next year or two. And this is, again, a huge change, that the minimum wage jobs will be phased out in the healthcare industry. We have robots that take care of people now. Japanese are very good at developing these kinds of robots that can actually help people get out of bed and to do all their little jobs and so on, around the house, cook, so on. And we have other forms of automation that are coming in. I mentioned before the self-driving cars and other things. And humans are going to be having their jobs replaced, and they're going to have to do other things. And the governments are really nervous about this, because you get a bunch of people that are worried about their future, and you get a situation like in France. It's a good, or in India, or in other parts of the world where people are, especially the poor and the farmers, are rebelling, not taking it anymore. And so governments are forced into a new paradigm. They have to think about, how can we keep these people happy, basically. And that might mean a guaranteed annual income. That's been put forth as one of the solutions, so that basically everyone gets paid at least enough for their basic personal survival. And if you want to do more than that and do great things in the world and so on, then you'll be supported to do that, because that will be what will be the way of the future, is those who wish to participate in being creators and being those that want to actually help and elevate situations and help others and participate in that general goodness, they'll be supported to do that. Well, others that aren't willing to be transparent in that way, maybe they'll not be supported, let's say. So I think that we're going to see some really major changes in the way, as Ursula mentioned, the way we look at money, the way that the money flow situation happens, and the whole perspective on what is money, what is it that money actually accomplishes for us, and can we find ways to get along without having to be so focused and so obsessed with the accumulation of money and the love of money and the love of the stuff, all the things that we tend to get involved with in our cultures that may be detrimental or not so useful in terms of elevating others and making sure that everyone has a fair share and everyone is taken care of. So John mentioned the money does not exist in the rest of the universe. Well, so far as we know. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
And Mr. Keshe said that the fallacies of the matter state have been so deeply ingrained in the population that it's hard, to break away from that. Plus all the souls that are in your body from your grandparents and parents and great-grandparents and so on, and they have always worked in the matter state. So it's a very, the fallacies are deeply ingrained within the mankind, I guess. But, so we have to have a lot of understanding when, we look at other people, and not to think that they're stupid, but that they don't get it and so on. But some sort of understanding that they can be brought along just as we got free somewhat out of the matter state. And even though we're operating in both right now, it seems to me. But that's what the problem is. It's just this matter state versus, which is the illusion, but it's so deeply ingrained that it's so hard to break away. But they will be broken away.
Point. I see Rick has written earlier in the chat. I understand that in France, the government is calling for deep transitions to society in order to curb the supposed effects of man-made climate change. It seems to me the oil tycoons should make deep transitions to their lifestyle, and the people and environment can continue and begin thriving without demeaning control systems run by greedy and power-seeking individuals. So the idea there is not to demean those control systems, but to thrive. I think Mr. Keshe said it well one time. We're looking for evolution, not revolution. So in France, they like to call for revolution because that's where the revolution happened in the, 1700s? The French Revolution, the big one. And they're big into revolutions there, but I would suggest what we need is an evolution rather than a revolution. I think that's the message of the Keshe Foundation. It's all about elevating others and evolution and positive positioning and that kind of thing. Some of the ideas may seem revolutionary, but they're actually more, when you look at them, more evolutionary than revolutionary, I think.
And I had read that Mazda is going totally away in 2020. There'll be no more internal combustion engines in their entire fleet. It will be all electric. So there's movement.
Yep. That's why GM moved from Oshawa, is to move toward electric vehicles, self-driving electric vehicles, and they're investing in China and Mexico instead of Canada, because it's too expensive. Too expensive to hire people when they can hire robots in Mexico and China. But yeah, all of the car manufacturers and truck manufacturers are looking toward electrifying everything. Within 5 years, most of them. Jaguar, for example, always into internal combustion engines, they're phasing out. Volkswagen has a new electric car, an electric van that they'll be featuring. They're rapidly scrambling because they got caught in the diesel mess that they were the first ones to create it by lying on their emissions tests, and that caused a whole snowball effect that affected virtually all the major manufacturers. There's, I think, 5 of the largest auto companies now have some of their top officials and CEOs have been incarcerated to keep them from falsifying the test results while they sort out this mess. And some of them have already are doing jail time. There's several, all the top executives in Volkswagen have been named, and they can't travel to the US because they'll be arrested as soon as they get there. And this kind of thing, I'm amazed because I've always had issues with diesel exhaust and the fuels and so on. Being a mechanic for most of my life, I became highly allergic to all of that stuff. And to see the changes that are going on now, I'm just amazed that this could start to happen so quickly as I see it. And you're going to see in a couple of years, we'll look back and say, why were we ever so in love with oil to start with? That was insane. All the death and mayhem and health issues and huge expense and huge devastation over this entire planet, to the animals, the fish, the plants, the land, the people, is incredible. Way more than all of the world wars put together, the deaths involved, way more in terms of the destruction, the people, environment, animals, and everything else. And we still put up with it, or have been, but not so much anymore. And that's really encouraging because people are binding together and cooperating. And some people have said in the past that the only way that humans are going to be able to get off this planet is if they cooperate with each other. Because without that cooperation, we don't really have a chance. We won't be able to take that opportunity, because it takes more than a couple of people to make that chance happen, that ability to get off the planet and to get outside the system. I think John mentioned here, after he said money does not exist in the rest of the universe, he says the concept of money only exists on Earth. That is one of the reasons why we are not allowed out of the energy belt. So, and some people have said that we're not allowed, humans aren't allowed to go to space yet as well, because we're too warmongering and too aggressive. So perhaps we are learning to be cooperative and finding ways to agree to peace with each other. And if snowball effect keeps happening on the planet the way it's looking like in the last while, it's inevitable that we will be reaching that point of being, quote, allowed to travel to space. And that'll be a grand day for humankind. I think it's rapidly approaching, and I'm thankful for the Keshe Foundation to prepare us for this. Think of all the things that Mr. Keshe has done. He's set up this Earth Council and the Universal Council, and other groups have formed to help with the education. And I recently asked Mr. Keshe, I said, if you were to have a sudden donation of millions of dollars for the Keshe Foundation, what would you do with it? What would you do with it if you just got millions of dollars suddenly to play with, to start new projects, to start things? And what would you do? And right away he said, I'd put it back into education. And wow, he would put it back into spreading the knowledge even more. And I thought that was pretty amazing. And Mr. Keshe is always emphasizing the teaching. And as soon as you become a student, you become a teacher. You should be teaching it. As soon as you learn something, you already know enough to pass it on to someone else. So we all are teachers. We all have ability to make a change, to make a difference to someone else's life. And some people, it might make a difference to dozens or hundreds or even thousands of people. And some of us make a difference to one other person, or maybe make a difference to ourselves. And that's enough to maybe be the right person at the right time that changes the entire planet, because of the repercussions and all the connections and all the different filaments that are threads and strings that are attached that suddenly start getting pulled, and people start waking up and saying, oh, I've connected this to this, and now suddenly this makes sense to me. Well, let's invest our multi-billions of dollars that we have in this project and put it into this. And I like this idea of the GANS water, and everyone should have access to this, and so on and so forth. Major projects could start popping up like mushrooms all over the planet.
There's some nice comments there from Mark House.
Put
them in the chat there for you.
Oh, okay. From Facebook. Okay, I can read it out. Or do you want to, Flint?
Go ahead.
Okay. It's from Mark House. It says, we are witnessing exponential spirit moving in the souls of humanity at so many levels. This movement, in line with the focus more upon life and purpose away from money and power, will soon become the major reason for it. The KF is offering the purest forms of elevation and purpose of our work to provide these solutions. Enough years of social media being available for our openness and honest examination of governments and their unaccountability to use our taxes in such a very unbalanced way. KF energy as a focus for all of humanity is quickly advancing and will show its value entirely over the whole of mankind. We should begin to request of our governments lands for free use of field plasma, since these governments have land holdings that are not used for all people. The transition to the precepts of struggle to the precepts of breaking away to a greater ease of the conditions of life. says, yes, Rick, the timing is arriving with the automated transportation. Workers all over the world are tiring of the humdrum and stress of working for corporations that add so much lost time with their families, etc. And this is causing a lot of road rage. This I see daily as a cab driver. When the plasma lift becomes available to the world, we can then envision the dismantling of our dismal urban sprawl, and the cities can be built in the greater real estate of the skies, thus allowing the Earth's surface to regain its splendor and life. The world population can grow exponentially when we enter the skies with field plasma positioning. Okay, I'm going to copy that and put it into our record here. Right after Sarah's wish for a new system, we'll put in Mark's description of the new system.
Don't forget the dates on these.
Oh, that's a good idea. Thank you.
Sarah was last week, if you want to go back and put that in. Would have been the 27th.
Thank you.
No.
No?
Yeah, you're right, sorry.
No, yeah? Yeah, no?
Yes.
Yeah, no, yeah, no? Okay, well, that's good then. So we've got that. Thank you, Mark. That was a nice description. All right. Do we have any other inputs here? Checking the chats.
Moshe, I have a few things that we can talk about.
Okay.
You know, we have this pig. We saw the video of the pig doing last.
I think, speaking of which, I think, Flint, do you have that video lined up? Can we have a look at that while? Do you want to?
Oh, yeah, I'll pull that up here just a minute.
Maybe we could just watch it in the background with the sound off while you're mentioning what you're going to mention.
Yes, actually, that would be nice.
I was waiting for the pig keyword to pop up there, so
yes.
Thank you.
So,
but go ahead.
The most interesting part is here, pig is giving us a lesson. The humanity, we are a little slow. Pig is a little faster than we are, so because perhaps pig is more aggressive, but nevertheless, we can learn the lesson. The lesson is that of giving. So we talk about soul level and the soul level elevating others, giving to others. Now, let's think about this giving. Do you have the video on? Because it would be nice because I can actually use the video to talk now.
You have it there, Flint, or are you still looking?
Coming right now.
All right.
Okay.
Did you want the sound on or off?
Off, and
yeah.
I want the pig more than anything else. Now, if we look at the video, as the pig is consuming the water, it is displaying emotional. It is being emotional in its reaction to consuming this elixir, so to speak. And so the giving, we talk about giving at the soul level, but giving can be at any level in the sense that the pig is here giving us an emotional message. So when we play with children, for example, we give the child or communicate with the child or give to the child through emotion. And there has been quite a bit of discussion about money and the evils of monetary system and so forth. But instead of thinking about money being bad or not so good, let's think about giving in the sense we can give at the emotional field strength level, or we can do it at the physical field strength level. So what is the requirement in one's ability to give? So one has to have the ability to give. And this is, as Ursula was pointing out, this is best done by demonstrating. So we can, let's say I use plasma. I have a tomato plant, especially where I am. It doesn't grow very well, but with plasma I can extend the season and so forth. Instead of, let's say, 5 tomatoes, I have 10 tomatoes. So I can give half of it to my neighbor. So that's so in this case, because of plasma, I have the ability to give, since I have more tomatoes. Now, having this knowledge, Keshe Foundation knowledge, or similar knowledge, it doesn't necessarily have to be Keshe Foundation knowledge, but once we have the ability to do more, be it physically growing tomato or being emotionally stable so that those who are suffering from fever can receive from those of us who are not as affected by it. And in this way, the giving process comes from those who have the ability to give at whatever level, soul level, emotional level, physical level. And then the question of money does not appear because let's say somebody loves to sing and that person can sing to an audience and there is no money involved because that person is giving certain satisfaction to those who are listening to the music. So we can, in every aspect of life, if we come from the point of view of we have the ability to give, or we can learn the ability to give, be it through Keshe Foundation, be it through weaving, be it through music, whatever. But this faith that we have things to give, I mean, things I'm not necessarily physical, emotional, soul level, but as we give and demonstrate to others that we can give, then we are in a position to change the whole framework, because once one person can give 2 people, if it is done by each one of us, is there anything but abundance under those kind of circumstances? So we can do it at any level. And initially, of course, the physical level has to be there because we are so attached to it. But that's not the only level, of course. And if we can give to others, if we have the ability to give to others and give to others, let's say 10 people, one person gift, like makes 10 shirts and give to 10 people. And there might be just the pleasure in making the shirt well and then giving it to others. Will we have any shortage of anything? Of course, some people will be slow learner, like let's say the government or the hyperactive people, but their capability of giving hasn't developed yet. But by demonstration, they too can learn. And it is through this active process that there won't be any lack anywhere if we gain the ability. And Keshe Foundation is a very good example of it. Through education, that's giving as well. There is no physical, tangible thing, but as more people learn about making GANs water, people benefit. So at every level, we can create this environment where the giving creates a surplus of everything, if we are to put it in sort of bartering terms. But it's not bartering, it's just the willingness and the belief that one gives, and when one has the ability to give, and as one develops one's ability, they can give more in 100 different ways. So under this, when we have such a situation, in due course, I mean, people won't think about money. And here, pig is a good lesson because its physical, emotional part is displayed. I don't know about pig soul. I'm not that elevated to reach the pig, but I live in a Muslim country. So, I mean, this has been a hard lesson for me just from the pig. So, because it's one of those unclean animals. But anyway, but if I can learn, anybody can learn, I'm sure, to give. Thank you.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I guess your perspective is different when pigs are considered, we'll just call it unclean animal. Actually, pigs are fairly clean when they're in a clean environment, apparently, but they're actually supposed to be one of the most intelligent animals as well, which is hard to believe with the reputation they have, but...
And their anatomy is the closest to the human.
Oh, that's a good point, too. When you take the skin off, they look very similar to human, apparently.
But I think in this video, the pig is demonstrating that it's a little more intelligent than the humans, I think.
You figure, right? Are you sort of being sarcastic, or are you being realistic?
Well, actually, I have tried giving plasma waters to my relatives. They're not too keen about it sometimes, it's hard to believe that something like this, like water, can do something. Pig, on the other hand, is very immediate, and
either like it or not like it, and if he likes it, he'll go for it. If he doesn't, he doesn't. Yeah. There's no value sort of thing put on it, valuation or anything. It's just yes or no.
Yeah, it's the preconceived notions. Pig don't have as much preconceived notions as we have, like money, for example.
Yes, right.
Money, so they're more intelligent in that sense.
Yeah.
So there are things to be learned here, and so that's why I like the pig video, because it in several ways, physically and emotionally, pig is displaying that. Let's do it.
Yep. And his ears went from drooping and dropping to perking up and starting to be elevated. So the pig's ears actually got elevated through this treatment. Hard to believe, but when you think about it, it makes sense. And I think if pigs could fly, their ears would be up and not down. So maybe with the Ganswater, we'll end up with a strange breed of flying pigs. Now that would get attention. Not only did we cure swine flu, but we made pigs fly. And now they fly to market instead of having to drive them there. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's time to think about not eating pigs.
That's right. There is that old statement, Rick, of when pigs fly, well, they just might. And you're absolutely right. It's time.
All we need is intelligent flying pigs. It seems like it's game over for humans then. So maybe we better not go for that. But yeah, well, this is an interesting idea. Maybe the pigs should be as pets rather than as livestock as such.
Absolutely. They should. Friends don't eat friends.
That's a good point.
Rick?
Yes, go ahead, Mark.
Can we put a cap and gown on the pig? Because this might be one of the teachers to show people how the creation works and how fields can put the pigs back into balance, but the fields, this will show people and then it can put us into balance with our need to eat.
Yeah, well, this is funny because
so the pig might be the premier pedagogical here.
Well, in spite of all of our efforts to try to educate people and all of the bits and pieces we put together over the years and all the massive amounts of information and hours and thousands, literally thousands of hours of Mr. Keshe's teachings and so on. Maybe it takes one pig, a picture of one pig, and ending up being far more powerful than all of that put together. Isn't what a strange idea, huh? But yet it may come to pass.
And for all of our existence, we didn't understand viruses at all, right? I mean, we at first obviously couldn't see them or understand them or at all. Then they got identified. Now some guy comes along and puts something in water. Is this something special?
I think more people seeing this pig will see this pig as their domesticated pets. I really feel that this pig is going to be enlightening many, many people. Thank you, Mr. Keshe.
You know, Peggy, he does this all over the universe, right?
I know it's old hat for him, but I'm still learning.
So from Facebook, from Sasa, peace is what will make humanity continue to survive and prosper. And from Imki, I think the cure for this will come with the increasing amount of people joining this foundation over time. Yes, indeed, there's definitely more and more people joining the army of the Keshe Foundation, you could say, or the arms of the Keshe Foundation. Army is not really a good word to use with the Keshe teachings, seeing that the World Peace Treaty is the laying down of all tools and aggression, laying down of arms.
It's actually very beautiful, Rick. This is Peggy. To see that so many of these other types of groups that want world peace or cleaner earth or stop polluting, that they are uniting. And the Keshe Foundation is very much a common thread within these organizations and smaller groups now. You may have a group of 100 people that are involved in one particular community action, but they've heard of the foundation, if nothing else, or a group of 500, and maybe you'll have one or two that have actually worked or are currently working with the technologies. So it's beautiful to see, because it's not just fresh, eyes opened, but it's also those whose eyes have been open for some time and still yet not having complete pieces. So we're all truly uniting.
Right. Well, I see that's the big role of the Keshe Foundation, is this kind of an interconnecting link between these organizations. Eventually, I mean, we have to work toward that in a way and become just more and more involved in all the different things going on in the planet, and different people and all their various avenues that they express themselves and so on. But because of the broad spectrum, what Mr. Keshe keeps saying, the wide bandwidth, he talks about the nanomaterials having it's good when you create the copper oxide black nano coating. In certain uses, you want to have a wide bandwidth that absorbs the full spectrum of lights and rays and so on, rather than a narrow spectrum. That's why it's black to start with. It absorbs virtually all of the light spectrum, so it doesn't reflect any light. It's one of the most blackest things, actually. So that broad spectrum, that wide bandwidth, is what the whole Keshe Foundation has in a way, because of this crazy thing where it's space technology that includes so many aspects of life on Earth as well. When you look at the breakdown of the main categories of the work of the Keshe Foundation, it's, as has been laid out for 5 to 8 years or whatever, from even the original website, and it was talking about the lift and positive positioning and transportation and space technology, and the power or energy systems, and the creation of new materials and transmutation of materials, and the health and agricultural aspects that results from those interactions, and of course the GANs and the nano world works into it as well. And all of this gives us an amazing toolbox, you might say, or a source for a wide spectrum of tools that we can use for various situations. We can go into a municipality that's having issues with decontamination of some sort, or maybe a pest issue, or maybe a problem with their transportation that we're able to have a solution for. And various opportunities will be coming up, like this swine fever that happened to be, you could look at it as a horrible, terrible thing, or you could look at it as, wow, what an opportunity to be of service and to create a new mentality, a new way of approaching the problem, let's say, and to deal with it in a cost-effective, efficient, relatively easy way that, generally has a very good outcome. And it's a win-win situation, and people recognize that and they go, wow, you mean I don't have to pay a multinational corporation thousands of dollars to obtain this whatever medicine, various other materials or whatever processes or things. Instead, it becomes accessible to the average person, and the average person in most of the planet doesn't have a lot, either daily income or a lot of things, high technology or medicines and so on may not be readily available, or may be way too expensive for them to access. And in many areas, they resort to the home remedies and herbs and so on, which might be more effective than the actual so-called medical resolutions. But imagine those people and cultures able to access the plasma technology, and for example, the liquid plasma feeding station that was mentioned earlier, which is a really good one. And, I'm kind of hoping that Flint might pipe in here at some point, but I think he's maybe holding out for the testimonials group next week there. But he has a great story to tell about that, and I'm sure, well, I know that many others do as well. In fact, you can go to the testimonials site for the Keshe Foundation. You'll see the plasma feeding station testimonials. And we've heard from people before going for extended periods of time without feeling the need to eat, because they feel satisfied with the plasma feeding. So it's a big deal, and it's just another example of how in certain circumstances that might be an appropriate tool to pull out of the toolbox and say, hey, we've got this that can help alleviate some of the suffering that people are having with the starvation and lack of resources in this area. There's a way that we can help alleviate that, and so on. So lots of work to be done in that whole realm. But again, it's what other work is better than improving the planet and improving the lives of others? I mean, that's really what it's all about. Anybody else have something they'd like to say at this point in time, space? Carolina, are you still in the background there. I think she was a bit busy during this session, so she may not be readily available. Okay, what else can we bring up about this, or should we start wrapping things up for today's program? Everybody.
Before we do, I'd like you to mention the Plasma Reactor Group, which is another public teaching that anybody's here that would like to continue on and get a little deeper. Rick does a show called the Plasma Reactor Group. Maybe you want to describe that a bit, Rick.
Well, sure. I've had the Keshe Plasma Reactor Group for, geez, it's been, let me count the years. I think it's about 5 years now. And every Wednesday, 7 a.m. Central European Time, at the same Zoom channel and other live streamings as this program and the Knowledge Seekers Workshop. Yeah, I present a group where we discuss some of the more practical aspects of the teachings of the Keshe Foundation, and generally it was organized originally from the Keshe plasma reactors, strangely enough, and especially the first patents, the patent applications from Mr. Keshe, and we were looking at the different types of reactors and trying to vision how we could build them ourselves, and we had different vacuum systems and so on, because the first reactors were under vacuum conditions, and we weren't even thinking about GaNs and nano so much at that time. And we were working with gases, and rotating reactors was the idea. Some of them weren't rotating, but mostly were. And that was the sort of reason to get together for people originally. And that developed into working with discussing the theory and discussing other aspects that weren't necessarily directly related to the Keshe plasma teachings. So we brought in a few other things, but always tried to incorporate it with the ideas of the lift and creating new materials and the positive positioning and creation of energy. That was a big aspect to begin with, this idea of creation of energy. And that's taken many different twists and turns over the last years as well. Some of it's gone sort of on the back burner, but there's still groups actively working on that. Well, other things have come more to the forefront, like the health aspects, and the agricultural especially has been quite important over the last couple of years. But back to the plasma group, and now it's people come and they show their latest projects, and I invite anyone that's got especially something unusual or something different they'd like to show, or a different aspect, something that maybe hasn't been brought out before. Or if you have a question about your GaNs arrangement or something, and you can show a video, or a clip, or a picture, or some description or whatever, then that's welcome as well. We're here to help answer questions and help elevate people's understanding where we can in the group. And everyone contributes that way to help help with the knowledge so that it carries on. And what else do we do? It's
I think it's a beautiful show. There's a lot of dynamic interaction there, and learning all the things from different people. It's an elevating, which all of the Keshe Foundation is, but I think it's rather special.
We do have some rather dynamic interactions, sometimes some surprising outbursts, and a bit, sometimes we have some rants and some raving and stuff, but generally we try to keep it civil and under control, and have respect for each other, which is the main thing, and also to have fun. I try to have fun in the group, and I welcome some of the rather funky contraptions that we all have come up with, myself included, especially even myself. And sometimes the simple funky things are the ones that you can really learn some basic truths from, and it can be a lot of fun as well, because when you work with some, there's a toy I was toying with in the last couple of plasma reactor groups, a toy from the dollar store. It costs $2.50, but it illustrates perfectly the toroid and the way the fields operate around a magnetic field, or the way light works, and all these different principles of the universe can be demonstrated on a relatively simple apparatus. So that's part of sort of the philosophy of the group, is keep it simple and keep it as real as we can. Sometimes it gets pretty far out there, because we're often dealing with what we call feeling the fields, which means different things to different people, I suppose. But generally, the idea that there are fields, first of all, like that are generated by a plasmatic entity, and that these fields may be sensed by our human organisms, or by our essence, or something deeper, call it the soul, or whatever you like to say, and that we're able to access this sensitivity and be able to play with that and work with that, to increase it, to be able to be more sensitive to the fields. And that's been a lot of the talk and discussion has been revolving around that kind of activity. And so there's other tools we use in our toolbox as well in the plasmic group, various actual devices for sensing the fields, and different types of fields that can be sensed, and trying to put some we mentioned about is seeing is believing, and that concept before, because we live in this physicality, we like to have things that are physical, that we can relate to, that we can see the ideas and the concepts that we're grappling with sort of right in front of us, that makes sense. And so you can extrapolate from magnetic fields, the interaction of magnetic fields. You can extrapolate from that how maggrav fields would interact, because they work in a similar way. Once the magnetic fields are from magnets are more physicality based, but the idea of interactions with invisible fields is still similar. So anyway, I just went on for quite a long time there about stuff, but suffice to say, come by and you can watch the Keshe Plasma Reactor Group either on live stream or Facebook or YouTube, if all are functioning properly and I've managed to get everything working right, which is most of the time now. And also on Zoom, which is the place where we interact, and you can ask questions verbally and so on in the Zoom, the live Zoom, when that's happening, just like in this Zoom chat, which we have. For those that are in the Zoom right now, other people might be hearing me in Facebook or live stream or YouTube, but we do have the live Zoom room where people are able to do the sharing and so on. And generally, it's good to check with me before you want to share something in the Keshe Plasma Reactor group, so that we're clear that there's no copyrights or no music attached to it that might have copyright and that kind of thing. Images have to be copyright free, and it should be all original footage and that kind of thing. So some of the rules, little things to follow. And what else? Anything else, Mark? Did I leave anything out?
No, if people want to be elevated, come to the group, come to the show. I think it's beautiful. I stay up late to attend. Sometimes I fall asleep, but that's my soul is still there.
Yep. Well, it's sometimes hard because it's weird hours for people around the world sometimes. Like starting at 7 a.m. is pretty hard at Central European time. We usually go for, well, at least 2.5, more likely 3 to 3.5 or even 4 hours quite a few times, because people start to sort of wake up at that time in Europe, I guess, and people get into second wind by the time they're up to 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning in my area. So it sort of works out, and it's hard to stop sometimes at the end because we get going on certain ideas, and it can be a lot of fun. So anyway, I think we should probably wrap up for today's show here. We're getting up into to the next convention coming through. So we have to open up the room again and allow things to air out for whatever's going to happen next. Any other comments or things that need to be said before we do wrap up here?
Rick, real quick, it's Peggy again. Are you still as Mr. Fix-It Rick on YouTube for the past teachings and get, the group, the Reactor group, or have you migrated to the Keshe Foundation channel in YouTube?
Well, both. There's still the Mr. Fix-It Rick channel, and I'm a little behind right now with the plasma group. Several, I think three or four weeks behind there to post them, but it's still happening. But I'm trying to get people for that group. They should access it through the Keshe Foundation would be the best way. I've got other videos that I refer to from time to time on my channel, various Tesla videos and that kind of thing. And sometimes I'll refer people to my Mr. Fix-It Rick channel, which can be a lot of fun for those that like experiments and that kind of thing. But I do like to refer people to the Keshe Foundation YouTube channel, which is the best way to get. There's a number of, in fact, there's quite a few playlists there now. And one of them is the Keshe Plasma Reactor Group playlist. And the other one is the Knowledge Seekers Workshop playlist. And there's the One Nation, One Planet, One Race for World Peace playlist, as well as a host of many more, including quite a few languages now as well, playlists of teachings in various languages. So people can check that out.
Very good, Rick. That's what I wanted to clarify, is that your platform is now on the Keshe Foundation channel, which, congratulations, that was major accomplishment getting that bus into the station, I guess I'll say. And yes, everyone should definitely join in if they can live with Rick. It's a lively group of creators, and the creations they make are amazing. Thank you, Rick. I really appreciate all you do. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the suggestion there, and putting in the plug for the Plasma Reactor group on Wednesday mornings at 7 a.m. Central European Time at the same station, you could say. Alrighty, let me see, what else do we have?
Well, next Monday, December 10th, is the 25th public testimonial meeting. Join us here on the same channel, and it's at 8 p.m. Central European Time.
And is it true, or is it just a rumor that we might hear from Flint?
Yeah, you might hear from me then, yeah.
A testimonial from Flint. That will
amazing.
That will be amazing. In fact, I've already said that's amazing to him privately in the chat. And I'll keep it a secret until he comes up with it.
Okay.
I've suggested it become an actual Plasma Scientific Journal entries even. So it's to set that up and put you on the spot.
Oh no.
Are you going to offer any hints, Flint, in case someone in the audience may, I mean, I don't know what you're going to do, but are there any clues?
Give them a little clue.
It's a surprise. It's a surprise.
You have to wait and see.
Put it away.
Trying to garner more people to join.
How about we could give a number? A number.
Nah. Just wait. Yep.
No,
Come to find out.
No numbers, nothing. Okay, my lips are sealed until maybe we'll put a little hint. We'll put it this way: when I publish the notice for the testimonials group into the regular places and Facebook and so on, we'll put some sort of little clue in to see what Flint's going to reveal. Just some little thing that will make it extremely difficult for them to figure out.
Is this something we'll save money on if we use it or something?
I have no clue.
Okay.
Okay. Flint, for that, can I ask you something?
Maybe.
Okay. There is a promotional video, One Planet, One Race, One Nation, the old one. Do you remember it? It's about
with the Earth in it and Mr. Keshe talking?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you bring it, show it to us?
Yeah, we can dig it out, dust it off. I mean, today?
It's not very hard.
Yeah, I have to find it in a sea of files.
Yeah, let me see. I don't know if we could put our hands on that right away.
Because if we are going in peace and all of that, think what is matter, I think this promo is really touchy.
True. There's One Planet video with Keshe vocals. Is that it?
I have it.
Oh. Aren't you good? Or lucky. One of the other.
Is it something, Flynn, about happiness? Because you seem to be a little happier, or is that just because you're keeping a secret? It's exciting.
I don't know.
Who knows?
Both. Okay, let's get it.
I think there's a lot of aspects you could say about this particular thing.
No, Mark,
you'd be right. You'd be right about all of them.
No, Mark, I think Flint is happy for something else. Today is a special day, I think.
Indeed it is, Jalal.
Yeah, ne?
Shall I say it out loud?
No, leave it secret.
Oh, is it somebody's birthday?
Someone get younger.
Happy birthday, brother. Much love and gratitude. I am so appreciative you decided to join us here at this time.
Yeah, happy birthday, Jalal.
Thank you.
So you're 29 today.
So old. I am 26. No, really, I am now 3 years and exact 2 months. 3 years and 2 months.
You're a 3-year-old, hey?
Yeah. That is the first day I came across this beautiful soul teaching.
Right on.
Okay, so I'll play the planet video here.
Yeah, and I guess we'll just go out with that then, correct? So, thank you all for attending today for today's One Nation, One Planet, One Race for World Peace. The 60th one of those, which is a bit of a milestone as well. For Tuesday, December 4th, 2018. And as always, thanks everybody for attending and participating in today's show. And happy birthday, Jalal.
Thank you, Rick.
And happy birthday to we, because maybe it's our birthday for humanity as well. All right, take it away, Flint.
You are people listening from every corner of this planet. No knowledge has been dispersed so beautifully, so balanced across the planet, on this planet ever, maybe in the universe. You have the full potential of achieving everything in the universe. There is no need and there is no reason for man not to achieve. So, wherever you are, the way I taught you to make the coils double coil inside, you have continuous equal gravitational magnetic field, and if you put CO2 on it, and you put zinc on it, you have connected the emotion of the man to it on a stable condition, and you'll find out you become a very peaceful man. Here, instead of having galaxies and universes and creating connection magnetically, we have used the matter state gravitational magnetic field strength to dominate and dictate the shape of the plasma. The nano-technology, the nano-material which you have collectively developed in different ways, by caustic, by electric currents, by whatever, fire or whatever, has that advantage that the matter, the nano and the plasma is all the same, so connection is very solid. is very strong. The power of the plasma technology, the way we have thought, is beyond imagination of the man. Now you can create and control the plasma, which is the mother of the creation of the universe. You are given the seed of the essence of the creation. The foundation does not belong to no one and is not made of one anymore. You are developing it. You are structuring it. And from today, we will be still the same. We'll still develop the technology in different names, in different colors, in different nationalities which they do not exist. It is beautiful when we see the Christian, the Muslims, the Jews, and every other belief are working together to build up systems. We have already become one faith. We already have become one nation, and we already become one planet. You got to remember one thing. Dates is irrelevant. Today is the last day of the Christian calendar, or tomorrow is the beginning of another. One day is connected to another. We don't stop. We are working around the clock. The Keshe Foundation team is working irrespective of time, position, religion, country. And now we achieve what we set out for.